Hey fellow gamers, this is Hubert from RJG Games. If you follow me on Instagram, you know who I am. If you follow me on Facebook, you know who I am, and Twitter as well. But for all of you here on YouTube, this is our first video. And I'm Hubert, and I love video games and computers and anime. Sci-fi, pretty much all that, anything that's geekdom, I absolutely adore. And today I have a guest with me, Meli.
Hi, I'm Meli. I am a cosplayer, I'm a dancer, I enjoy video games. I grew up around video games because of my mom, and I love anime because of my mom. And you can follow me on Instagram at MeliHunHun. And that's about it.
Awesome. So we're going to talk about some of the things we're going to be talking about on this YouTube channel. Now, the cool thing about this is that, well, you know, we're in the middle of a pandemic, so we haven't really had that many conventions this year. For those of you that attend conventions, you know, whether it's a gaming convention or an anime convention or sci-fi convention, it's a bummer that we haven't been able to do that. But we have this medium, YouTube, that actually connects us to people all around the world that has common interests. Now, Meli is visiting from out of town. What she's going to be doing from time to time, she's going to be reviewing some of her favorite video games. She'll be talking about them, so we're going to have a little segment for whenever she sends us these videos so you guys can see any new or retro games that she might be playing. Is there any game in particular you'd like to tell us about?
So I'm a fan of the Tales of series. I've always played Tales of games as long as I can remember. I remember playing Tales of Symphonia, Tales of the Abyss. My favorite game out of the Tales of series is actually Tales of Vesperia. It came out in 2008, but the American release cut off a lot of the Japanese. They took out a character, they took out cutscenes, they took out dialogue, and they actually released the definitive edition for Tales of Vesperia, and I was able to get my hands on that. And the playthrough was amazing. You find out about things that could have affected the story. It changes the story differently. It changes the fighting style differently. They put in a new character that is not new to the Japanese release, but to the Americans, it is. And the style of it, the whole storyline, I have played the game since 2010 on the Xbox when it first released in America, and then when the definitive edition came out, I instantly jumped to the Switch, and every time I play it, it feels like a new game. And I always recommend people try it out. Give it a try. It is a standard JRPG, so if you're not into JRPGs, maybe kind of steer away from it, but I always recommend maybe get started into it since in America it was so big.
Now, as you can see here, I have several consoles. They're all mine, except for the Switch. You have two games right there in the front. Can you tell us what games those are?
So this one is Tales of Vesperia, and this one is Kirby Star Allies. And I have Animal Crossing currently in the Switch. I don't know a single person who doesn't at least want to play it or have it already. So this is my little area of fun.
Nice. Now, for those of you, like I was talking at the beginning of this video, we're in the middle of a pandemic, and when this whole thing started, the one thing that got a lot of people united to be able to interact with each other from a distance was Animal Crossing. Mm-hmm. And I love the fact that it's like, it became a social norm for, I think, about 2, almost 3 months. It was the biggest thing out there, you know, and I like the fact that it allows so much creativity within the game and people being able to interact and invite each other over to each other's islands. And I know my roommate locked himself in his room and he played this, and it was great. Now, I missed out on this because this is the thing. I was telling my roommate about this. Whenever new consoles come out, this is the way I buy the consoles. Xbox, PlayStation, and then I go to Nintendo, whatever console they release. And one of the reasons about this, and this is a testament to Nintendo's ability to stay up to date and appeal to the masses, Xboxes and PlayStations tend to go down in price not too long after their release. Because they're two main competitors. They're always trying to outsell each other, and they say, well, we'll drop the price. This is the thing about Nintendo. these consoles hold on to their prize well into a year, 2 years of their release there. So I'm always a late adapter, or not adapter, a late adopter of Nintendo consoles. So this is the reason why even to this day I do not have a Nintendo Switch. I do have a Nintendo Wii U, which I bought right before the Nintendo Switch came out. So I know for a fact I'm missing out on a lot of games that are out there. And my nephew has one, and he's consistently telling me, "It's like, you gotta buy one." I will, and when I do, you guys will know.
We'll find out when that day comes.
Now, as I mentioned, I have a lot of consoles here, and as you guys can see, I have some Ataris. I'm wearing my Atari T-shirt today. I decided it'd be great, and we also have this little flashback, which is something Atari released years later, well into the 21st century, for those of us retro gamers that didn't have an Atari 2600 presently to be able to play some Atari 2600 games. Okay, so now I want to talk about these consoles here because each of these consoles are very special. Even these right here, I didn't have growing up. I got them later on, like a couple of months ago. Now, I haven't cleaned these up or anything. I have tested them. They do work, but there are some issues with them, like the key stick. So what I want to do, I want to share with you guys the semi-restoration experience that I'm going to be doing with some of these products, including the Nintendo Entertainment System over here, which is a lot of you guys. Did you ever play with this growing up?
I did not.
You did not. So you do not know about the issue.
Nope.
These were very well known. A lot of you guys that grew up with a Nintendo, if you remember putting in the cartridge and pressing the power on button, and the power off button would just blink. And I remember with my friends spending minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes trying to make one stupid cartridge work and blowing into it and wiping it with alcohol with a Q-tip just to try and get it to recognize it. We would even like jam other things in there because it's like the way these work, you feed in the cartridge and then you got to press it down. So a lot of times we would like jam something in there to hold it at a certain angle and no, don't move it. Press the power button and then one after 100 times it would work. You know, and it's surprising that Nintendo, they were the last ones to have a cartridge before finally going they went straight to DVD, not even CD, like the PlayStation.
Yes.
PlayStation was all CD-ROM. So they skipped that whole process and they went to DVD with the Nintendo Wii, which is one of the best-selling consoles of our time for being so innovative.
Yes.
But I'm really surprised when I heard that their latest console was going back to cartridge. But it does make sense because now optical media, which was at the height of its popularity in the 90s, now can't hold as much information as a tiny little SD card.
Yep.
Now you can actually buy a 1 terabyte SD card now.
Yes.
Imagine that. Now imagine what you can put into one little cartridge for the Nintendo Switch.
Even with the Xbox 360, there was Blue Dragon when it came out for the American release. It was put on 3 CDs.
Yeah,
yes.
It's such a massive game. It's like you couldn't like consolidate it. It's like you had to go with 3, and not even CDs, DVDs.
Yes.
Full double-sided DVD. So making use of the almost 8 gigs that one DVD could hold in 3. So that's the game. That's how massive it was. Now, right here, I have 2 computers. And have you ever heard of these?
I've heard of this one.
The 130XE?
Yes.
Okay. Do you ever hear of the Atari 800?
I feel like I might have. I feel like somebody in my life might have told me about it, but...
Okay, so this came out, I think, late 70s, early 80s, depending on which version of this one you actually bought. Now, the thing about this is that when I was a kid, I had a 2600.
Wow.
And when I played Pac-Man on it, I looked at the graphics and I was like, this isn't Pac-Man. It's like, I seen it in the arcade, and then I see the 2600, and I'm like, it's like, this isn't Pac-Man. So, the funny thing happened. A few years later, I saw the Atari 5200, which was also a console, not a computer. It was the next step up from the Atari 2600, and I saw the graphics on it. I was like, that's what Pac-Man's supposed to look like, and I'm like, that's the console I want. So I bugged my mom and my dad. I want a 5200. I want a 5200. Little did I know, I should have bugged my parents for an Atari 800 because the games you played on here looked like the games on the 5200. But the 5200 was not a computer. This was. And years later, when I found this out, I was like, I should have asked for a 5200.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, not 5200. I should have asked for an 800. 5200, by the way, ended up like a year of using it. The power adapter died, and eventually it found its way into my closet, and it disappeared.
It's very fun seeing retro consoles or retro PCs from back in that time period because everything is so small and handheld now, even with iPads and MacBook Airs and even your cell phone, you know. So seeing that comparison, and for growing up in a new age like I did, this stuff to me is like, wow, this is ancient, you know.
And heavy.
And heavy.
This is really heavy, actually. My brother had a Commodore 64. It wasn't as heavy as this. And this was the main competitor to the Commodore 64.
Oh.
Yeah. Commodore 64, the advantage, it came with a built-in 64K of RAM. That's a lot, right? And this one, actually, you had to buy the memory expansions. Kind of like now, you have to buy the RAM to expand to be able to play bigger and better games or do video editing. Back in the day, that was very, very common for the Atari. You had to buy the expansion, and it would only go up to 48K. Now, Atari later released the Atari 800 XL, which came with built-in BASIC and built-in 64K of RAM.
Right.
But then they didn't stop there. They came out with the Atari 130XC, which is basically the Atari 800. Much smaller, nice, compact case, and it came with 128 kilobytes of RAM. Now, this one competed directly with the Commodore 128. Now, the problem with the Commodore 128 is that the developers didn't bother to make any games or programs that took advantage of the 128 kilobytes of RAM. Mm-hmm. Atari actually did that for this, but by that time, when this console came out, Atari was already in a lot of financial troubles. So this didn't sell as well as it should have, and that's the sad part. That's why it was such a big deal for me to get it. When I saw it, I'm like, I know exactly what that is, and I want it.
So interesting hearing that was considered small and compact back for those times. You can just imagine, Mom, I'm going over to my friend's house. I'm going to bring my Atari with me. And it's like, look, it's so compact. I got the new one. And nowadays it's just like, that's compact?
When you can just
put this in your bag and go.
So simple, yep. So easy. And now consoles, the competing consoles are actually going the other way around. They're getting bigger.
Yes, like the PS5.
The Xbox Series X, that thing.
Series X is big.
Big, like this big. And as soon as I get my hands on one, I'll show you and compare it to the Xbox One S, which I have back there, which is actually smaller than the first Xbox One. So when they were talking about the next console, I really thought they were going to go small.
Nope.
No. It's like we're going the other way around.
It looks more sleek, though, and more modern. I feel like the aesthetics to the newer and bigger models are more of an aesthetic purpose. Like the PS5 when it first came out, and the fan art people were drawing of the PS5. You know, I don't think anybody would draw, an Atari as an aesthetic. So I feel it's purely for aesthetics, not really for the.
Probably.
If you have an Xbox One or a new generation, how does that work for you? Because I'm thinking about getting one.
I'm going to get one because, like I said, that's the way I adopt the consoles when they come out. So I definitely want to get it. I still got to figure out how I'm going to fit it in my entertainment center.
Right, yes.
Because it's already full of consoles, and it's not going to fit nicely where the Xbox One S is right now.
We'll make do.
Now the PS5, that too, I've seen the size of that didn't decrease.
Nope.
It's the other way around. It got bigger.
Yes, the PS5 is a lot bigger than its previous models, and it looks cool. Not gonna lie, it looks really cool. I'm interested in it. However, the price range for the newer consoles are just getting higher and higher and more expensive. And PS5 even has a digital version of the PS5, which is very interesting.
No discs.
No discs.
It's kind of like with the Xbox Series S.
Yes.
It's basically the discless version of the Xbox Series X. Right. They gotta come out with better names. That's too long. Xbox Series X. Just call it the Xbox.
They already have one of those.
And then just change the name. Make it easier.
Keep going with different angles. Go Xbox 180 next time.
Yeah.
Xbox 90 degree.
You know, PlayStation, PS5, simple. Nintendo, Switch, simple. Xbox Series X. Oh no, I mean S. No, I have the Xbox One X. You hear about that, by the way?
I did not.
During the pre-orders of the Xbox Series X, a lot of people got confused and they ordered the Xbox One X instead, making the Xbox One X becoming unavailable, almost selling out from all the retail locations they had it because, again, Microsoft fixed the names of your consoles so they're not confusing. The Xbox One already had an Xbox when it first came out. No, this is the new console. Would it have been so hard to call the Xbox One the Xbox 720?
I'm actually very curious about the kind of games that they have on the new modern Xboxes that keep coming out, other than Call of Duty or whatever. That's what I know. I used to play RPGs on the Xbox, which were very few and far in between. But with the recent Xboxes, I hear more about PlayStation's coming out, the games on PlayStations. Nintendo's coming out with this. Nintendo's doing this with their games. I don't know a lot of people within my age group who really play on the Xboxes. So when I hear the competition between Xbox and PlayStation's always winning in my mind. You know, they always have something better, something bigger, you know, new versions of, you know, Kingdom Hearts 3 and just their other games that they have. And then Xbox just comes in and goes, we bought Bethesda. Look at us now. And everyone's still, anyways, PlayStation, you look really nice.
It used to be unheard of playing Final Fantasy on Xbox.
Right.
Or Kingdom Hearts. You know, that was PlayStation exclusive.
Correct.
You know, Final Fantasy was PlayStation as well.
Right. And
with some releases on the on Nintendo consoles, but Xbox wasn't known for those games. And then all of a sudden, it's like, oh, we got them too.
Yep. Final Fantasy 13. And everybody was going, Xbox release. Why?
It's like, how'd that happen?
Yep. And then everybody was wondering for 13-2 if they were going to move that to the PlayStation or keep it on Xbox. I remember when that was coming out and everyone was going, are you finally going to move it to a newer console that we have, like the PS3 or PS2, you know, or are you just going to stick it on Xbox 360 again? And they went ahead and just did that. But then they finally moved back to where they were comfortable. But a lot of people didn't even like the release of Final Fantasy on the Xbox.
Yeah.
They thought that was where JRPGs go to die, was if you got an Xbox release.
Well, a lot of times also the gameplay has to do with the controller you're used to playing. So it was hard for a lot of people trying to switch from playing from the PlayStation controller, which has kept pretty much the same aesthetic for the longest time, over to an Xbox, which also once they nail down a way for the controller to look, it's been one of the most solid controllers in the industry. But it's different. If you grab a PS4 controller and an Xbox One controller, I can see how it's, you know, you're dealing with different buttons. You're dealing with different characters on those buttons. So it can get confusing.
Yes, the PS5 even changed the layout of their controller as well.
We'll see
just
how that
slightly,
goes.
Not too bad, but it's enough for people to go, huh?
Now, I can't continue without mentioning not the Xbox, because it's a box. I got confused, okay? Great move, Nintendo. But the Nintendo GameCube.
The best.
I actually, you know, the Nintendo GameCube wasn't that hot when it first came out, and a lot of people weren't too happy because it was underpowered compared to all the other consoles, but some of the best games of all time came out on the GameCube.
Yes, Wind Waker. Wind Waker!
Now, in case you guys don't know, because you would have no way of knowing, that's actually a Japanese GameCube. And yes, so it will not play US games. This will play games only released in Japan. And the reason I bought it is because there's a lot of games that were released in Japan that never made it here to the US.
Back in those times, especially in the early 2000s, the releases for Japanese games weren't well heard of over here.
Yeah.
So there was no reason to bring all of the games. It was kind of like, if you're in the club, you're in the club, but...
And if you're not,
you're not.
You're like, nah, whatever.
What's
we're not.
That?
So the nice thing about having this is that every time there's a convention here, Anime Expo or ALA, it's like, you know, go to the dealer's room and you will find little sections, little vendors that will have a limited stock of Japanese release games.
So we're not sure when that's going to be an experience anybody else will be able to have soon. Considering where we're at and where we might be.
Yeah.
I kind of miss it, honestly. The last convention I went to was in 2019.
Yeah,
so,
that's right.
Yeah, back in April.
Yeah, I didn't get a chance to go to a single convention this year. Actually, I did think there for a moment, I did consider going to Anime LA over in Ontario. And I just decided not to go because I went the year before. I didn't have that great of a time. It was raining a lot, and a girl's cart got set on fire by her. I think it was her ex-boyfriend, or because she turned him down,
during the rave.
And the guy just burned her car, and it ended up burning the two cars next to it. Crazy. But this year I decided, well, I'll wait. I was gonna go to San Diego Comic-Con. So I was saving to go. I was kind of leaning away from anime conventions and kind of go back to the root of the conventions that I started going to back in the day, which were either general or specifically sci-fi conventions. So for me, it was kind of like, I'm going to take a break from anime for a bit because also the anime industry has gotten a little, well, not the anime industry per se, the anime convention industry has gotten a little toxic in the last couple of years.
Yes, the elitism really comes out with the cosplayers, and the joke online is like, oh, no doubles, you know, only one of us in a group, and sometimes that actually translates. It's, you know, it can't be a meme unless it's real at first. Yeah. So there is that elitism with the younger and lower cosplayers and the older ones as well, being like, oh, things were different, but I can 3D print a sword, and it's good for you, but you know, that elitism can sometimes spill over and it gets a little rough to compete, I guess.
So for me, conventions, I have gotten more to the point where running into people that I haven't seen in a while. Or a lot of times is that's when I get to see some of my friends who are from out of town. So this year I was actually going to skip Anime Expo. I was going to skip, not WonderCon. I was going to go to WonderCon. But pretty much anything anime specifically related I wasn't going to do. So I already had my badge, confirmation badge for WonderCon. I had my industry badge for San Diego Comic-Con, and I was planning on going to LA Comic-Con, which canceled and recently announced that they're going to actually try and go through. They announced they were going through with it. They even pre-sell tickets until the LA Health Commission had to step in and say, you're only going to have this event happen if we approve it. So let's wait and see how that goes. Either way, I'm not planning on attending. I'm just going to wait till next year and see how things progress. And we'll see. We'll see again. We're living in very different times nowadays. So we'll see how things progress. But again, for me, it's like not being able to attend a single convention this year. It has been a little bit of a bummer. I was going to try to go to E3 for the first time.
Oh, man.
And then it look, nothing happened.
Concerts and stuff have moved virtual.
I wanted to go for the games.
Yeah. I didn't. I also had a plan to go to SoccerCon this year in Washington.
That's right.
And,
you were.
Yep, I was gonna go with my friends, and we were kind of waiting it out because we like to do things last minute. Don't do that.
That's conventions for you.
But don't do that. But then once January rolled around, February started looking a little bit more concerning, and then the news came out about it. We decided maybe not. You know, maybe there's too much going on, and then everything hit the fan all at once. And SoccerCon was one of the first conventions to cancel since March, and then April was when they were supposed to be. So.
Yeah, Anime Expo waited to the very last minute to cancel. They kept saying, we're going to go through with it, we're going to go through with it. Then San Diego Comic-Con canceled, and the very next day, Anime Expo had to call it quits. So we'll see. Hopefully next year is going to be a little better for conventions and for the world in general, maybe. Honestly. And I'm hoping, fingers crossed, that things will get better because I love going retro hunting.
Yes, I like going figure hunting. And I just like the cute stuff they bring to the cons as well. So the imports of Rilakkuma plushies or Sanrio stuff that you can't get here, it's easier to access.
And a lot of these figures I bought at conventions. Actually, the very first figure I ever bought, the one that started this insanity behind me, I bought at MechaCon at New Orleans. And I bought one figure, only one figure. And then the next figure I bought was at MegaCon in Orlando. Following, I think it was, I'm trying to figure out, I think it was the following month. I went down to Orlando and then I bought my second figure. And then after that, it just got out of hand.
Figure collectors don't usually start off as figure collectors. They do just go maybe one or two. I have a Roy Mustang and a C2 from Code Geass figure. And I'm looking at them going, maybe that's not enough. So that's a very expensive hobby, though, to get into, and I already have expensive hobbies, so I have to pick. Being a cosplayer takes a lot of that money.
No, the thing about figure collecting is I remember when I had mounted a nice little amount of figures, and it was a little shelf about this big. Actually, it's the one that's over there. It's about this big, and it's the kind you buy in Target, like the bookshelves. But I put figures in it. And I remember I stuffed all my figures in there, and I took a picture and I was showing off online with people. It's like, look at my collection. And then people would reply with walls full of figures, and I felt very, very small in the world.
A friend of mine has a figure room. So it is a coded, locked room filled with figures and cases, and some are in boxes, some are not, some are in the the glass cases, and then it's very impressive. So that does make you feel small in the figure world.
Now you might think I have a pretty big collection, and actually on camera you can't see all of what's on the side over here and over here. But on top of all of this, I have stuff in storage because I don't have room for it here anymore. So usually if I buy it, I come home with it and I try to rearrange things, which I recently did to be able to put the Mac back here and some of the consoles, which are over there, and there's Nintendo 64 back here. So I'm showing off, by the way. So I had to rearrange this, and so some of the figures that I had off the side that I hadn't found a place where I was able to put here. I have a Transformers collection going on over here, which I love Transformers, so this was very important to me. I had to, my Nendoroids, my Miku Nendoroids, I had to all stuff into one shelf back here just to make room for all of my Transformers. Because right now that's my focus, figure collecting Transformers. So yeah. So we touched on pretty much every side of geekdom. On the consoles over here, I think we mentioned just about every console releasing company, except for Sega.
Yeah, and you can always check in with me for the games that I think are fun, which a lot of people, expect, like, go Animal Crossing, and yeah, it's like, I like games like that. I like really easy, nice, cute games, and I'm a very big fan of JRPGs. But, I might expand my horizons just because there is nothing else to do right now than expand our horizon in some fields. So let's check in with you for that.
Alright guys, thank you for watching this first video here at RJG Games. Follow us. Click like if you like this video. If not, feel free to hit the thumbs down. Although we'll love you more if you click that thumbs up. You can find me on what are the 3 social medias? Facebook,
Instagram,
and Twitter. Just look for RJG Games, and you'll find my channel there. I'm always posting when I'm out and about retro console hunting, and I will talk about that later on to let you guys know how you might be able to find some pretty good deals locally. You don't have to travel too far. sometimes your neighbors, sometimes your thrift shop will have these consoles, and they'll have them for a pretty good price. So guys, thanks again for joining us. So please take care, be kind, rewind.